17 Hollywood legends, all huge stars, all way shorter than you think. These tough guys ruled the screen like giants, but in real life, tiny. Studios used hidden boxes and sneaky camera tricks to hide the truth. Stick around, we're about to reveal their real heights. And don't forget to subscribe to Classic Hollywood Legends for more secrets from the Golden Age. Meet Mickey Rooney. Born Joseph Yule Jr. in Brooklyn back in 1920, he stood just 5'2", tiny. But at MGM, this guy became a giant star. He'd been performing since he was a baby, touring in his parents' vaudeville act. Then came his big break, the Andy Hardy movies, starting in 1937. Rooney danced, joked, and moved like lightning. His size? Nobody even noticed. From 1939 to 1941, he was crowned the top box office star in the whole country. Rooney teamed up with Judy Garland for hit musicals like Babes in Arms. He even went serious, acting beside Spencer Tracy in Boys Town, and it landed him an Oscar nod. In 1939, the Academy gave him and Deanna Durbin a special award for young stars. But growing up hit hard. His baby face, once his biggest asset, now blocked him from tough guy and romantic roles. Still, he kept working, on stage, on TV, in nightclubs, for decades. At 80, the Black Stallion brought him another Oscar nomination. Later, the Academy honored him for life. Rooney passed in 2014, age 93, after an incredible 80-year career. Next up, Frankie Darrow. In Wild Boys of the Road, he jumped freight trains and fought railroad guards, showing the rage of Depression-era teens. This 1933 film gave him his best role yet, playing a boy forced from home. The film is now a National Film Registry classic. Born Frank Johnson Jr. in Chicago in 1917, Darrow's parents were circus stars called the Flying Johnsons. He hit the screen at just 6 years old, becoming a busy child star in westerns and thrillers. His circus training made him fearless with stunts. He did his own. Standing about 5'3", Darrow kept his boyish look for years. Studios kept casting him as a teen even in his 20s. His small frame also landed him jockey roles. How long could Hollywood keep treating a grown man like a teenager? Darrow later starred in cheap action comedies for Monogram Pictures, teaming up often with Mantan Moreland. In 1940, kids everywhere heard his rough voice as Lampwick, the bad boy turned into a donkey in Disney's Pinocchio. Darrow then served in the Navy during World War II. After the war, he came back, but mostly to smaller parts and stunt work. By the end, he'd racked up nearly 200 acting credits. He died of a heart attack in Huntington Beach on Christmas Day, 1976, just 3 days after turning 59. Now, Peter Lorre. A room full of criminals goes dead silent as Lorre begged for his life in Fritz Lang's M. That 1931 film shot him straight to fame worldwide. His role as a child killer wasn't scary because he looked strong, it was terrifying because he showed pure fear on his face. Born Laszlo Lowenstein in Austria-Hungary, Lorre trained on European stages before hitting film. When the Nazis rose to power, this Jewish actor fled Germany in 1933, landing in Britain. Alfred Hitchcock cast him even though Lorre barely spoke English. He learned his lines by sound. Most sources say Lorre stood 5'3", but records from 1947 list him at 5'5". His broad shoulders, hunched posture, big eyes, and soft voice made him look even smaller on screen. Hollywood used this, casting him again and again as nervous crooks and shady foreigners. His biggest American roles? Joe Cairo in The Maltese Falcon and Ugarte in Casablanca, both alongside Humphrey Bogart. He proved he could be funny too in Arsenic and Old Lace, but typecasting followed him for life. Lorre died of a stroke in Los Angeles in 1964 at 59, right after finishing his last film. Burgess Meredith. A pair of broken eyeglasses became one of TV's saddest images ever. In Twilight Zone's Time Enough at Last, he played a lonely bank clerk who finally gets time to read, then breaks the very glasses he needs. No physical power required, just pure heartbreak. Born in Cleveland in 1907, Meredith stood around 5'4.5", way shorter than typical Hollywood stars. Then World War II hit and he was drafted, pausing his career. In the Army, Davis faced brutal racism, but performing changed how hostile soldiers treated him. After the war, he returned to nightclubs, becoming a solo star who could sing, dance, joke, and do impressions all in one act. In 1954, a horrific car crash cost him his left eye. Just months later, he was back performing with a prosthetic eye. That recovery pushed him toward faith, and he converted to Judaism. By the 60s, he was famous with the Rat Pack, joining Sinatra and Martin in Ocean 11. But racism never stopped chasing him. His marriage to Swedish actress May Britt brought death threats, and he was even left out of JFK's inauguration, despite campaigning for him. Davis kept going strong, hitting #1 with The Candyman in 1972. He died of throat cancer in 1990 at 64 after a career spanning 6 incredible decades. Sammy Davis Jr. was performing before he even understood show business. Born in Harlem in 1925, he joined his dad's vaudeville act at just 3 years old. Years on the road taught him singing, tap dancing, impressions, everything. Standing around 5'4.5", Davis was way shorter than typical Hollywood stars. Then World War II hit and he was drafted, pausing his career. In the Army, Davis faced brutal racism, but performing changed how hostile soldiers treated him. After the war, he returned to nightclubs, becoming a solo star who could sing, dance, joke, and do impressions all in one act. In 1954, a horrific car crash cost him his left eye. Just months later, he was back performing with a prosthetic eye. That recovery pushed him toward faith, and he converted to Judaism. By the 60s, he was famous with the Rat Pack, joining Sinatra and Martin in Ocean 11. But racism never stopped chasing him. His marriage to Swedish actress May Britt brought death threats, and he was even left out of JFK's inauguration, despite campaigning for him. Davis kept going strong, hitting #1 with The Candyman in 1972. He died of throat cancer in 1990 at 64 after a career spanning 6 incredible decades. James Cagney. That grapefruit smashed into Mae Clarke's face in The Public Enemy lasted only seconds, but it made Cagney Hollywood's wildest gangster overnight. Released in 1931, it turned him from a Broadway newcomer into a huge Warner Brothers star. Standing about 5'5", Cagney's sharp talk, fast moves, and tough stance made him seem ready to fight men twice his size. Born in New York City in 1899, he grew up working class and briefly went to Columbia University. He started in vaudeville, even performed as a female impersonator early on. Later, he danced in chorus lines, hit Broadway, then made his film debut in 1930. His dance training gave him razor-sharp control over his moves, and it powered his gangster roles too. Cagney admitted his height sometimes mattered on set. Filming next to tall actress Claire Dodd, crews slipped a 2-inch box under his feet. But that wasn't his real secret weapon. His restless energy let him own every scene without needing height at all. His biggest triumph wasn't a gangster role. It was playing entertainer George M. Cohan in Yankee Doodle Dandy, winning him the 1943 Best Actor Oscar. He returned to crime in White Heat, retired in 1961, then came back briefly for Ragtime in 1981. He died in 1986, at 86. Edward G. Robinson. While filming Little Caesar, he had a strange problem. Gunfire made him flinch and squeeze his eyes shut. Director Mervyn LeRoy later said crew members literally taped his eyelids open to save the shot. The man who looked fearless on camera? Terrified away from it. Born Emanuel Goldenberg in Bucharest in 1993, Robinson's Romanian Jewish family brought him to America as a child, and he grew up on New York's Lower East Side. A scholarship pulled him away from law school and into acting. Standing about 5'5", he lacked Hollywood's typical leading man height, but his booming voice and piercing stare gave him power nobody could ignore. Little Caesar made Robinson a star in 1931 and set the whole gangster movie genre, but he refused to stay stuck in that image. He played an insurance investigator in Double Indemnity, a gentle father in Our Vines Have Tender Grapes, and an aging gambler in The Cincinnati Kid. His fight against fascism and support for civil rights brought false accusations of communism. cleared but still hurt, graylisting wrecked his career through the 50s. He finished Soylent Green right before dying of bladder cancer in January 1973. He never won a competitive Oscar, but weeks before his death, the Academy gave him an honorary award. His widow accepted it for him. Alan Ladd. He only got fourth billing in This Gun for Hire, but audiences never forgot that cold, quiet killer. Released in 1942, it made him a star overnight and set his tone forever. Wounded, controlled, dangerous. Standing about 5'6", Ladd was shorter than most leading men, but his low voice and still movements made him totally believable, criminal or hero. Born in Arkansas in 1899, he lost his father young and moved to California with his mom. Before fame hit, he bounced through odd jobs and tiny, uncredited film roles for years. That's where talent agent Sue Carroll discovered him in 1939. She landed him better roles, later married him, and pushed his rise at Paramount. Paramount kept pairing Ladd with Veronica Lake, another famously short star. Together they made classics like The Glass Key and The Blue Dahlia, one of the studio's top duos. Rumors about hidden boxes followed Ladd everywhere, but height wasn't the real magic. Both stars had that same cool, guarded energy, perfect for film noir. His defining role came in 1953's Shane. Few words, total control, the mysterious gunfighter who saves a family then rides off alone. Later years brought health troubles, drinking, and weaker roles. He died in January 1964 at just 50 from an accidental mix of alcohol and pills, right before The Carpetbaggers hit theaters. Charlie Chaplin. A tight coat, baggy pants, a tiny bowler hat, a cane, and huge shoes. This outfit changed movies forever in 1914. Chaplin threw it together almost by accident while working at Keystone Studios, and The Tramp was born. His real shoe size was just 5, but the Tramp wore size 14 boots, making that wobbly walk unforgettable. Born in London in 1889, Chaplin grew up in brutal poverty after losing his father early and watching his mother's health fail. He toured young with the 8 Lancashire Lads, then crossed America with Fred Karno's comedy troupe. Keystone hired him in 1913, and within years he was a worldwide star. Chaplin stood about 5'6", though reports vary. He loved shrinking the Tramp even more by putting him next to huge cops, bullies. That contrast made every kick, dodge, and escape land harder. The smallest guy in the room kept outsmarting everyone who thought they'd crush him. Chaplin eventually took full control, writing, directing, producing, and starring in his own films. The Kid, The Gold Rush, City Lights, Modern Times all mix comedy with real pain, hunger, and inequality. He left America in 1952 and got barred from returning during a political storm. He came back in 1972 to receive an honorary Oscar celebrating his massive impact on film. Chaplin died at home in Switzerland on Christmas Day, 1977, at 88. Buster Keaton. A 2-ton house wall crashes straight down on Keaton in Steamboat Bill Jr. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't move. A window swings right over him, missing by inches. Keaton marked his exact spot and shot this insane 1928 stunt himself in one take. Born in Kansas in 1895, he joined his parents' vaudeville act as a tiny kid. His father literally threw him across the stage, teaching him how to fall safely. By age 5, he was already a pro. Keaton stood about 5'5", but his tough athletic body let him climb buildings and dodge disaster after disaster on screen. Keaton started in films with Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle in 1917, then took control of his own movies between 1920 and 1928. His frozen expression, later nicknamed the Great Stone Face, made all the chaos around him even funnier. Then he signed with MGM in 1928. His career crashed, and alcohol made things worse. He kept popping up in films, TV, and commercials, but interest in his silent classics eventually returned. In 1960, the Academy gave him an honorary Oscar for his legendary comedy work. Keaton died of lung cancer in 1966 at 70. Lou Costello. Before he became the confused baseball fan everyone loved, he was risking his neck as a Hollywood stuntman. Born Louis Francis Cristillo in New Jersey in 1906, he moved to California young and worked as an extra and stuntman. One job reportedly had him doubling for actress Dolores Del Rio. A 1939 profile listed Costello at 5'3" and 185 pounds. Standing next to the tall, skinny Bud Abbott, his round build created instant contrast. Abbott stayed calm and in charge, while Costello bounced, panicked, and blew up in frustration. Filmmakers never hid the difference. They made it the whole act.
Abbott and Costello broke big on Kate Smith's radio show in 1938. Their first film hit in 1940, and Buck Privates made them stars the very next year. Their rapid-fire jokes peaked in Who's on First, where Costello's growing panic turned confusion into comedy gold. Costello kept working through radio, film, and TV, including Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Rheumatic fever damaged his heart, and his partnership with Abbott ended in 1957 under money and personal troubles. He finished one final movie, then died of heart failure in March 1959, just 3 days before turning 53, months before that last film even came out. Claude Rains. In his first big Hollywood role, you couldn't even see his face. As Dr. Jack Griffin in The Invisible Man, bandages hid him completely, leaving only his voice to carry the whole performance. Director James Whale wanted that eerie, rasping tone, and this 1933 film turned the stage actor into a movie star. Born William Claude Rains in London in 1889, he grew up poor and started acting as a child. His early speech was rough, a thick Cockney accent, but training turned those struggles into one of film's most iconic voices. During World War I, he served in the London Scottish Regiment and lost sight in one eye after a gas attack. He later taught at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. Next to taller stars, Rains used sharp diction, careful pauses, and the piercing look instead of muscle. He played Prince John in The Adventures of Robin Hood, a senator in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and the slyly corrupt Captain Renault in Casablanca. Opposite Ingrid Bergman in Notorious, he showed real vulnerability under a scary shell. Rains earned 4 Oscar nominations, but never won. He kept working in film, TV, and theater, even snagging a Tony Award. His last movie came in 1965. He died in New Hampshire in 1967 at 77. Sal Mineo. One red sock became one of the most powerful details in Rebel Without a Cause. Mineo reportedly picked it for Play-Doh, hoping to show his bond. His raw, sensitive performance earned him an Oscar nomination at only 16. It turned him into one of Hollywood's most recognized young stars overnight. He appeared in The Rose Tattoo, then played a prince in the original King and I. Mineo stood about 5'6", but his slight boyish frame made him look even smaller next to actors like James Dean. After Rebel Without a Cause, studios kept casting Mineo as troubled young men in films like Crime in the Streets and Dino. Then came Exodus, playing Dove Landau. But strong adult roles dried up through the 60s. Mineo kept working in TV and theater, even moved into directing. In 1976, while starring in a play, he was stabbed outside his home in what police called a robbery. He died at just 37, leaving behind 2 Oscar nods and a bold, honest look at teenage loneliness. George Raft. Before he ever held a movie gun, he made his living with his feet. In New York's nightclubs, he perfected a slick, controlled dance style, one that reportedly caught Fred Astaire's eye. Raft's smooth walk, sharp clothes, and tight moves later shaped his cool gangster image on screen. Born George Raft in Hell's Kitchen, he worked odd jobs before landing in show business. Standing about 5'7", estimates do vary. He wasn't super short, just compact next to typical leading men. Instead of big gestures, Raft stayed still, letting a stare or small hand movement build all the tension. His breakout came in 1932's Scarface, where his coin flip became a legendary signature move. That role locked him into playing gangsters and gamblers for years in The Glass Key, Each Dawn I Die, and more. He also turned down huge roles, including parts in The Maltese Falcon and Casablanca. By the 50s, his fame faded, but he later poked fun at himself in Some Like It Hot. Raft kept working small roles and nightclub gigs late into life. He died in Los Angeles in November 1980 after a career built on movement, style, and total restraint.
Elisha Cook Jr. Humphrey Bogart rips two guns away from Wilmer in The Maltese Falcon. Cook plays that moment with anger, panic, and wounded pride. That 1941 scene locked in his lifelong screen role. The nervous gunman trying to look tough but never quite in control. Born in San Francisco in 1903, Cook hit the stage as a teen, toured in vaudeville, worked Broadway, then moved into film in the 30s. Standing about 5'5", his slim build made casting directors use him against bigger, scarier actors. He looked weak, but his sudden bursts of rage kept every scene unpredictable. Cook rarely played the hero. In The Big Sleep, he's a small-time crook who drinks poison rather than betray a woman. In Phantom Lady, he's a creepy nightclub drummer. Stanley Kubrick, his role in Shane gave him one more unforgettable death, shot down in the mud by Jack Palance. Cook stayed busy for decades, showing up in House on Haunted Hill, Rosemary's Baby, and TV's Magnum P.I. A stroke in 1990 left him disabled. He died in Big Pine, California in November 1995 at 91, the very last surviving star of The Maltese Falcon. Donald Meek. In John Ford's Stagecoach, Meek sits among gunfighters and outlaws playing a jumpy whiskey salesman, totally out of his depth. His shaky voice and nervous look made the character instantly memorable. Standing about 5'4", Meek was always cast as timid clerks and worried little men. Born in Glasgow in 1878, he started in theater as a child, but his real life was tougher than his screen image ever showed. A brutal fall broke several bones and ended that career fast. He then spent decades in stock companies and on Broadway before becoming a familiar face during Hollywood's sound era. Meek appeared in over 100 films. He played an eccentric character in You Can't Take It With You, showed up in The Informer, Captain Blood, Jesse James, and State Fair, and even played a crime-solving doctor in a mystery series. Directors loved how fast he could build a character. Meek finished Magic Town shortly before dying of leukemia in Los Angeles in November 1946, at just 68. In 1960, he got a posthumous star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a tribute to an actor whose name rarely topped the poster, but whose face lit up every corner of Golden Age Hollywood.